Last night you left your body. You wandered through a house that doesn't exist. You spoke to someone who died years ago, and it felt completely normal. Then you woke up, and within minutes, most of it was already gone. This happens to you almost every single night. It has happened to every human who has ever lived. And for most of history, nobody could explain why. For a long time, the answer seemed simple. Dreams were messages. Ancient Egyptians believed they were visits from the gods. The Greeks believed the same, and built temples where the sick could sleep in hopes of a healing dream. Later, dreams became something to decode, something hiding a secret meaning underneath the strange images. But the real answer is far stranger than a hidden message. Your brain isn't sending you a letter when you dream. It's running a simulation, and that simulation might be one of the reasons you're alive today. Start with the basics. Sleep isn't one single state. It cycles through stages, and one of them is called REM sleep, short for rapid eye movement. Your eyes dart back and forth beneath closed lids. Your body goes almost completely paralyzed. And your brain, somehow, becomes almost as active as it is when you're wide awake. This was discovered in the 1950s, but it was a French researcher named Michel Jouvet who figured out something even stranger in the following decade. He found that during REM sleep, the brainstem sends signals that shut off nearly all voluntary muscle movement. Your brain is having a full experience. Your body is locked down so you can't act it out. Jouvet called this paradoxical sleep because your mind looks awake while your body looks anything but. Why would evolution build something so specific, so costly, and so consistent across almost every mammal on Earth? One answer comes from a researcher named Alan Hobson, a psychiatrist at Harvard who spent decades studying what happens inside a dreaming brain. In the 1970s, Hobson proposed something called the activation synthesis hypothesis. His idea was blunt. During REM sleep, your brainstem fires off essentially random electrical signals. Your cortex, the part of your brain responsible for thought and meaning, receives this chaotic noise and tries to make sense of it. It stitches together a story. That story is the dream. Under this view, a dream isn't a message from your subconscious at all. It's your brain's desperate attempt to explain static. Think about that. The moment you're flying or being chased or reliving a version of high school that never happened might just be your cortex doing its job a little too well, narrating nonsense into something that feels like meaning. But that can't be the whole story, because dreams aren't actually random. Ask people what they dream about most across cultures, across continents, across centuries of recorded dream journals, and the same themes appear again and again. Being chased, falling, losing teeth, showing up somewhere unprepared. Why would pure noise produce the same handful of nightmares in almost everyone? This is where a Finnish cognitive neuroscientist named Antti Revonsuo comes in. In the early 2000s, Revonsuo proposed what's now called the threat simulation theory. His argument was that dreaming evolved as a kind of rehearsal space. A flight simulator, but for danger. For most of human history, the world outside your cave or camp was full of real threats. Predators, rival groups, falls from cliffs. Revonsuo suggested that a brain which practiced responding to danger, even in a fake low-stakes dream environment, would react faster and more effectively when a real threat appeared. The dream doesn't need to be pleasant to be useful. It needs to train the system. This is also why children who face more unfamiliar threats as they learn the world tend to report more nightmares than adults. Their brains may simply have more rehearsing to do. So maybe dreaming isn't nonsense. And it isn't a mystical message either. Maybe it's practice. Quiet, nightly, unconscious practice for a life full of danger that most of you will thankfully never have to use for real. There's a second function that keeps showing up in the research, and it has nothing to do with danger at all. It has to do with memory. A sleep researcher named Robert Stickgold, also at Harvard, has spent years studying how sleep affects what your brain keeps and what it throws away. His research suggests that while you sleep, your brain is sorting through everything that happened to you that day. It strengthens some memories, weakens others, and starts linking new information to things you already knew. In one well-known study, Stick Gold's team had participants play a maze video game before sleep. Some of them, while dreaming, actually reported dream imagery related to the maze, even though they had no idea the game was connected to the study. The ones who dreamed about the maze performed better on it the next day than the ones who didn't. Somehow, dreaming about the problem helped solve the problem. This idea that dreaming helps consolidate memory shows up in study after study. Musicians who practiced a difficult piece before sleeping showed measurable improvement the next day without touching the instrument once during the night. Students who slept after learning new information outperformed students who stayed awake the same number of hours, even when both groups studied the exact same material for the exact same length of time. Something about the unconscious hours does work that waking effort simply cannot replicate. Your brain, it seems, needs the lights off to properly file away what the lights on couldn't finish sorting. This lines up with something almost every one of you has experienced. Going to bed stuck on something, a decision, a problem, an argument you can't resolve, and waking up with a clearer head, even without consciously thinking about it once during the night. That's not a coincidence. That might be your brain doing exactly what it evolved to do while you were unconscious. There's a third piece to this puzzle, and it comes from a researcher named Rosalind Cartwright, who spent much of her career studying the emotional side of dreaming. Cartwright's work focused on people going through major life stress, including divorce. She found that people who dreamed vividly and directly about their painful situations rather than avoiding it in their dreams tended to recover emotionally faster than those who didn't. Her theory was that dreaming functions almost like an overnight therapy session. It lets your brain process difficult emotions in a space that feels real enough to matter, but safe enough that it can't actually hurt you. You can rehearse grief. You can rehearse fear. You can rehearse an argument you never had the courage to have while awake, and somehow that rehearsal changes how you feel about it once the sun comes up. Consider what happens when this system breaks down. People who are deprived of REM sleep specifically, not just sleep in general, but the dreaming stage itself, start to show measurable problems within days. Their ability to regulate emotion weakens. Small frustrations start to feel unbearable. Their memory for newly learned skills gets worse, even when they get plenty of total sleep otherwise. In animal studies, prolonged REM deprivation has been linked to serious physical decline. The body seems to know that dreaming isn't optional. It behaves like something essential is missing, even though nothing about the dream itself can be touched, weighed, or held in your hands. There's also a strange rebound effect. Deprive a person of REM sleep for several nights in a row, then let them sleep normally again, and their brain will spend more time than usual in REM the very next chance it gets. It's as if some internal accountant is keeping track of a debt, and the moment the account is open again, it rushes to settle the balance. Whatever dreaming is doing, your brain treats it like a bill that has to be paid, not a luxury that can simply be skipped. Think about how strange this actually is from an evolutionary standpoint. For roughly a third of your life, you are unconscious, mostly immobile, and largely unaware of your surroundings. In the deep past, that should have been a death sentence. A body lying still in the open, unaware of predators, unaware of danger, should have been selected against almost immediately. And yet sleep, and REM sleep specifically, survived across millions of years and nearly every branch of the mammal family tree. Something about what happens during those unconscious hours must have been valuable enough to outweigh the risk of lying still and blind to the world. That's not a small trade-off. That's evolution deciding again and again across species that dreaming is worth the danger. Put these three ideas together, and a very different picture starts to form. Dreaming isn't one single thing with one single purpose. It might be a threat simulator, training you for danger you haven't met yet. It might be a filing system, sorting the day's memories into what matters and what doesn't, and it might be an emotional processor, letting you survive feelings that would otherwise be too much to handle all at once, wide awake, with nowhere to put them. None of this needed your permission. None of it needed your attention. It happens whether you remember it or not, whether you believe in it or not, every single night of your life for roughly 2 hours total, spread across 4 or 5 separate REM cycles. Over an average lifetime, that adds up to roughly 6 years spent dreaming. 6 years of your life, spent somewhere your body never physically went. Here's the part that should stop you for a second. You forget almost all of it. Within 5 minutes of waking, half of a dream is typically gone. Within 10 minutes, 90% of it has vanished, like it was never there at all. Researchers believe this might not be a flaw in the system. It might be the point. If the function of dreaming is training, sorting, and processing, the brain doesn't necessarily need you to consciously remember the training session for it to have worked. The gym doesn't need you to remember every rep for your muscles to have gotten stronger. So the next time you wake up with a fading fragment of somewhere strange, someone you haven't thought about in years, a fear with no clear shape, you're not just glimpsing nonsense. You might be catching the tail end of a rehearsal, a memory being sorted, a feeling being processed before it had the chance to overwhelm you while you were awake to feel it fully. Tonight, when you fall asleep, your body will go still. And somewhere behind your closed eyes, your brain will start its shift, running you through dangers you'll never face, sorting through a day you'll barely remember and quietly, invisibly, keeping you a little more ready for tomorrow than you were today. And thank you for watching. If this helped you see something ordinary in a new way, hit like and subscribe. It's what lets me keep bringing these stories to you. Science is the real magic of creation, and there's always more of it hiding in what makes us human.